Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Energy Evaluation Asia Pacific Webinar Series 21. So our today's topic is the industrial energy transition in South Asia. Specifically, we are looking in policies, impact, and future pathways. So so my name is Shabnam, and I'll be your host for today's session. As Edward mentioned, you can also introduce yourself in a chat. Tell us about your name, the country where you're joining from, and also your organization. And also, I also have a small question there, so you can just in one word answer what's the single biggest barrier to the global energy transition, policies, finance, or technology? What's in your opinion? So next, so while you're doing that, I will share some housekeeping rules with you. So first, this session is going to be recorded. So by participating and attending this session, you're giving your consent for this one. And then we would like to request you to keep your microphone muted while you're not speaking. And you can switch on your videos for better engagement. Use a chat box for questions. The speakers will respond to the question at the end of the session. We will have a 15 minutes of the QR session for that. And you can provide your feedback at the end of the session. I'll share a feedback survey link with you. This session will be uploaded in our YouTube channel and our website in energyevaluation.org. The session notes will also be uploaded in our website and also shared with you by email. So our today agenda will be looking like this. So first, we will have a welcome remarks by our steering committee member of Energy Evaluation Asia Pacific, Edward Wine. And then we will have our two keynote speaker, Dr. Dasgupta and Dr. Nahid. After that, we will have a 15 minutes of the audience question answer session. And then we will conclude our session with your feedback. So now I'm going to heading over to Edward.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for those who are able to join us today. I'm going to start sharing my screen right now. So first, a few comments about Energy Evaluation Asia Pacific. We call it a community of practice specializing in energy evaluation across the South Pacific. And there. So it's a nonprofit established in 2018. It's modeled after the one in the United States called the International Energy Program Evaluation Conference. And we've had conferences every 2 years since 1983. And then we later branched out because there's a lot of interest in Europe, and we have a very similar organization and a conference every 2 years since 2010. That's called the International Energy Policy and Program Evaluation Conference. In this case, we're trying to, as I mentioned, support the evaluation in Asia Pacific. So that's why we established one in 2018, so over 7 years now. And the key is to take a leadership role in expanding the practice of and capacity for objective evaluation in the energy efficiency and renewable energy program and policy arena. And the strategies we have is to develop resources and professional expertise to answer really complex questions related to energy, including which actions pay off, what works, what doesn't, how energy programs and policies can be improved. So we want to have an end on a positive note as well, and what actions can be scaled up. And we do this through workshops, conferences, and we hope to have one next year, webinars, this is our 21st, and other tools you can find on our website. The focus is fourfold. One is the collaborative approach, we work with a lot of diverse stakeholders, people from government, non-government organizations, universities, colleges, research institutions, and industry partners to help work with us in driving policy change to focus on evaluation. And it's also data-driven. We're interested in how decisions are based on data and data analysis to inform these decisions and provide recommendations to ensure these energy policies are grounded on empirical research and best practices. And we do this also through capacity building initiatives, through workshops, as I mentioned, technical assistance programs we've had in the past. We hope to continue. And then we prioritize monitoring and evaluation of energy policies to ensure effectiveness. So we need to track the outcomes and the impacts so we can get better programs that align with both regional development and sustainability goals. We do have a steering committee and an advisory committee and a coordinator. And we have people from many different countries within Asia Pacific. Go on from here. Again, why people are saying, why are we focusing on energy evaluations? Well, we're focusing evaluation through policy adoption and implementation, behavioral change, and economic environmental benefits. These are the key areas we want to make sure that evaluation plays a critical role. And it can. We've had studies and papers and talks about this. Hopefully, if you were able to attend the last seminar where we focus on non-energy benefits, and that was a really informative session. So we want to continue working in these areas. We feel we can contribute in the Asia Pacific region in each of these three areas. As mentioned earlier, we have a number of tools for communicating what we're doing through social media. In particular, LinkedIn has been very active, and our webinars are recorded and we put them on our YouTube channel. And of course, the last item is our main website, and you can learn more about both energy evaluation in Asia Pacific and then energy evaluation Europe. Find out what's going on. There's a conference coming up in Europe as well. So please take a look at that. So today's webinar focuses on industry. We haven't had too many webinars on industry, and you'll find out how important it plays in the two countries that are the focus here. But in order for those who are interested in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy, the evaluation of those programs and policies on the industrial sector is very important. So we have two speakers. So we have an hour today, and each of the speakers will talk about 15 minutes. I think I may go back to the agenda, but if not, and then we'll have questions and answers. Usually we hold the question and answers at the end. We'll have more time. So the first speaker will be, and I hope I pronounce it correctly, Shyamasree Dasgupta. She's an associate professor at the School of Humanities and Social Sciences through the Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, Himachal, Pradesh in India. And the title of her talk is An Evolution of Industrial Energy Policies in India and Their Impacts on Sustainable Energy Use. And that'll be followed by the talk by Firuz Ahamed Nahid. He's a postdoctoral researcher at SMARTS, and he'll explain what SMARTS is all about through the Asian Institute of Technology based in Thailand. And his talk is Industrial Energy Efficiency in Bangladesh, Assessing the Journey and Looking Ahead. Shyamasree, I mentioned who she is. She's an economist by training, and energy economics is one of her core research interests. She's worked in many different areas on industrial energy use and published in this area, including energy economics, energy policy, and the annual review of resource economics. And she's a contributing author in Working Group 3, the industry chapter, to the IPCC report that will be coming out. So I'll hand this over to Shyamasree, and you can start your talk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Edward, and thank you, Shabnam. Sorry for the initial glitches, but I think I'll just, try to make it for it. So a very good morning from India to all the participants who are joining. So today I'm going to talk about an evolution of the industrial energy policies in India and their impacts on sustainable energy use. Next slide, please. So just to give you a bit of context, I mean, most of you know that India is a very large economy. It's a South Asian economy with almost like 4 billion USD size, and it consumes about 1.5 gigaton of oil equivalent. Now, why do I say so? That when we have this larger economy, its sustainability is always a challenge. How do we meet it? It's a developing country, so we can't really compromise on growth at this point. But at the same time, we need to adhere to sustainability. And so when I talk about, how the policies evolved, I would like to pay you an attention to how globally the concept of sustainability, the policies towards sustainability, all of these evolved over a period of time. And India kind of tried to respond to those initiatives and those global landmarks. So why do I say that there is a lot of scope for improvement as a developing country in India, and where do those scopes lie? If you look at the figure, India takes almost 500 megajoule of energy to produce 1 unit of GDP, which is measured in USD purchasing power parity adjusted. And if you compare this number with, for example, Germany, you see in Germany it's only 280 megajoule. Now, I'm not going into the detail of how the structure of the economy looks like. Of course, I admit that in India, only sort of 50 to 55% of GDP comes from the service sector. On the other hand, in Germany, it comes almost 70%, comes from the service sector. So that is always there. But what we also need to understand that in India, the industrial sector plays a very big role. So if I take out the 50% which is not being contributed by the service sector, half of it, that is almost 25% of GDP in India, it's coming from the industrial sector. And how much does the industrial sector consume in terms of energy? It consumes almost 40% of energy. So we have a sector in front of us which is contributing 25% of GDP and consuming 40% of energy. So this is one of the very important sectors where potentially we can have energy efficiency. And why do I talk about energy efficiency? Because again, I go back to the statement that India is in kind of a situation where we cannot really probably compromise on growth, but at the same time, we want each unit of output to be produced with less amount of output. So by default, the indicator that we have been emphasizing on has become the energy efficiency indicator. And so if you look at the industrial policies in India, I would say in past 2 decades, 2.5 decades, they are, which are energy related, all of them, they are actually tried to focus on this key indicator, which is energy intensity or energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So I'll just take 2 minutes to give you a brief background of how the industrial policy in India sort of emerged after independence and how we see a policy shift towards, energy efficiency and energy sustainability from different angles. So the sustainability of the industrial ecosystem now greatly they are being defined in terms of how sustainably energy is being used in this sector. So if you look at the first 2 decades after, post-independence, post-1947, we had our 5-year plans which were laid out, especially after the second 5-year plan. A lot of emphasis was given to the industrial sector because the industrial sector had to grow in order to boost the economy and to boost, multiple sectors of the country. Now, if you go through the policy documents, you hardly find any reference to energy efficiency or energy sustainability per se. But that's not very specific to India or something. In the global literature also, previous to 1970 73, we hardly see any discourse, global discourse, which is very focused towards energy consumption, of course not about climate change. So first 2 decades is going in that direction, a push for industrialization. And there is a little bit of discussion around energy, but that is, more in the context of how India can actually become self-reliant in terms of the coal use. Then comes 1973, we get a oil price shock, and there was some realization that something we again have to reduce the reliance on the countries from outside from where India was importing oil, and so that was the narrative which was being created. But we see a significant difference, change in the policy direction, I would say, starting from 1985. So that is the juncture where India started thinking about opening up its economy. And in 1991, we adopted the liberalization policy formally when we opened up the market for the global economy. Now, why I actually mention this when I talk about energy in industry, this is the point where India actually allowed a lot of technology to come inside to aid the development process in industries. And whenever we talk about industrial energy efficiency, technology actually plays a very important role, whether the industries do have access to technology or not. And then finally, if we look into the last 2.5 decades, here we see more designated, more focused policies towards energy sustainability in the industrial sector. And one of the benchmark policies, which I think is one of the most important policies that we had, is called the Energy Conservation Act in 2001. So it covered multiple sectors. It covered industrial sector, household sector, many sectors it covered. But today I'll be focusing only on the industrial sector. And this act, as you can see, it very directly talks about energy conservation. So how each of the sectors can contribute to produce more output, also ensuring that there are acts towards energy conservation. And then 2008, globally, India actually committed towards emission mitigation through its National Action Plan on Climate Change. And one of the landmark national missions that we had at that point of time was called the Enhanced Energy Efficiency, National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency. And the policy that was actually targeting to the industrial sector, it was called Perform, Achieve and Trade. Next slide. Thank you. So this is the national action plans that we have. As you can see, we had like 8 national missions. All of them were triggered to deliver towards the goal of climate change mitigation. And as I said, as a part of National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency, we had this policy which is called Perform, Achieve and Trade. Now I'll explain in a while what it means and what was the impact of this policy on the Indian industrial sector. Next slide, please. So just quickly talking about the mechanism of Perform, Achieve and Trade. So basically it's a kind of a cap and trade mechanism. So what do we cap? We are capping energy intensity of the industrial sector. So what was done after 2008 when the PAT it was being documented at that point of time. So a huge role was actually played by the energy auditors. So the history is like this. In 2008, India government thought that they'll be able to give a target to each of the industrial units to achieve within a period of like 2-3 years. And as I say, energy intensity targets, it's defined in terms of specific energy consumption. And then once the target is set for each and every industry, so initially they thought they'll go by industries, but later they realized that the units within the Indian industry, so suppose the units that are operating within cement industry or within iron and steel industry, say they are so diverse that it makes no sense that if there is only one benchmark giving to the entire industry. So then actually it was a huge amount of task that was in front of the energy auditors. They had to go to each and every unit that fall under the PAT scheme. Those are large industrial units. They have to evaluate and set benchmark for each and every energy industrial unit that they have. And this is one thing that I think was largely appreciated globally, because sometimes we see that there is sort of a hurry from the side of the policymakers that I have to, sort of float this policy very quickly. But here I really appreciate the fact that we stopped there. We, took a step back and we thought that what can bring efficiency in the system. It's not the implementation of the policy in the namesake, but it's implementation in a true sense. Now, how does the Perform, Achieve and Trade work? It's again very simple. It's a cap and trade mechanism. So all the industrial units, let us assume there are two industrial units to your left and right called A and B. Both of them, they are given some energy intensity targets. One of them overachieves, the left hand side A overachieves, right hand side B, it cannot achieve the target. So once A overachieves the target, as a credit, they are given something which is called energy saving certificates. Now, those who are underachievers, they have two options to go for. One, a trade platform is created and you buy these energy saving certificates from those who have overachieved, or you sort of pay a penalty to the government. So if you see, I mean, there are three options that are there in front of one industrial unit. One, you can go for technological upgradation and then you achieve the target, you earn e-certs. That's one option. Second option is that if you think that the technology are really, really expensive and you don't want to go for it, then you prefer buying the energy saving certificates from the overachievers, or else you pay a penalty. So these are the three options. So it kind of creates a market mechanism where we are trying to ensure that the targeted energy intensity or targeted energy efficiency is achieved, but at a least cost. So if I find, going for technological advancement is very expensive, let me, let others go for it and let me buy the credits for them. So that was the mechanism. And this is going to play a very important role, in how we perceive the performance of perform achievement trade. Next slide, please. Now, energy intensity, when we take energy intensity as an indicator, it's very interesting that you always do not need a policy to motivate the industrial units to go for energy efficiency, because energy is anyway a very, very critical input and which is an expensive input. So you see, these are very important large industrial sectors that India has, like iron and steel, cement, aluminium, and so on. And what you see that even before these policies were implemented, you see a trend of declining energy intensity. So that was anyway there, which is triggered more by the energy price. Now the question that came, how do you actually enhance this? How do you actually accelerate the speed of declining energy intensity? Next slide, please. So here we are actually trying to compare the energy intensity decline of several manufacturing, aggregate manufacturing industries and several other industries, converting them into the same unit. So these all are in monetary units. So what we can see here is that in some industries, you see a sharp decline in energy intensity. For example, the top one that you see, that is for cement, and the bottom one that you see, which is not performing that well in terms of reduction of energy intensity, which is steel industry. So we have a varied performance across different industries. It's not very uniform that we see. Next slide, please. Now let us try to look at what Energy Intensity Act could have delivered and what PAT has delivered. So this, I would like to say that all these analysis are in our group, we do it based on the data that is published by Government of India. And this is what we find, and the issue is that we try to interpret how the results are telling us a story, but there can be several other narratives as well. So that is the disclaimer I wanted to give here. So I just want you to focus on this diagram for 2 minutes, and what we are trying to show here, that see, if you think about the energy consumption, the total energy consumption of the industrial sector of a particular country, say aggregate manufacturing, what are the factors that drive the level of energy consumption? Number one, if everything remains constant, your energy intensity does not change, nothing else changes, the technology does not change. And if I keep on producing more as industrial sector, that is definitely going to increase the energy demand that I have because I'm producing more. Now, this is called an activity effect. So this is the increase in energy demand because your activity is expanding because you have more amount of activity. Now, if you look at these bar diagrams, the tiny bar diagrams that you have here, the top one, the bar that is erected on the top of the vertical axis, they actually capture the activity effect. That is the increase in energy consumption in the industrial sector in India over a period of time. So these parts of the bars that you see here, these are basically due to an increase in activity. Now, in reality, it's not only activity that is driving the energy consumption. At the same point of time, we are having enhanced energy efficiency. So there is a push factors that is coming from activity increase, but there is a pull factor to energy demand, which is coming from enhanced energy efficiency. Now, what is exactly going to be your total increase in energy demand? That depends on this push factor vis-a-vis the pull factor. Now, if we try to trace what has been happening historically in the context of Indian industries, to the left-hand side, the box, within the box, you have the first two stacked bar diagrams. These are basically the pre-energy efficiency policy period. We don't have, even Energy Conservation Act implemented there. And you see, I mean, a large part of it is coming, the energy demand is coming actually from the activity effect, and a smaller portion is being negated by the energy intensity effect. The moment you shift to the third bar diagram, this is immediately post implementation of Energy Conservation Act, you see that there is a large leap in terms of increase in energy consumption due to activity effect. So the activities are growing, the economy is growing, but a larger portion of this increased energy demand is actually being neutralized by enhanced energy efficiency. So this is actually giving me a scenario where I'm growing, the energy output is growing, but I need less amount of energy to grow to produce 1 unit of output. Now the interesting part happens, the fourth column that you see, that is post implementation of PAT. Now, what is interesting that you see, not only the energy intensity effect comes down, but you also see the activity effect has also come down. So this is the period where Indian industrial sector was not growing as it was growing, the previous decade. So now, if the moment you see here, there is a tendency to conclude that energy efficiency gains are reduced in the post-PAT era. But we are trying to argue that it's not really the case, because whenever you are talking about the contribution of energy efficiency, it has to be, delineated in the context of the activity effect. Because when the activity effect is
we have to finish up in a few minutes.
Yes, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, almost 2 minutes. Yeah, so it has to be contextualized in terms of what is happening in the activity sector. So if your activity is not too high, then of course you see that the energy intensity effect is not also contributing that much. Next slide, please. So here you see the same trend across all the industries that are covered under PAT. So the activity effect itself has come down and the intensity effect has also come down. So in one hand, we are trying to say that it does not absolutely mean that PAT could not deliver anything. It has, of course, delivered a lot of energy saving, contributed to reduction in CO2 emission, but there are some lacuna, and I'll just conclude by pointing out those. Can I go to the last slide, please? So when we come to the implementation of PAT, and there again comes a very important role of evaluation. So the main weakness that has been documented in several literature and policy documents regarding PAT, it comes from the fact that it's a very difficult process, because you have so many units for which you have come up with specific energy consumption targets. So monitoring and evaluation comes a real challenge. In many times it is argued that what SEC was set, that was available, but actually how much these industrial units reduced in terms of their energy demand, that is not very transparently disclosed. And sometimes it is also argued that the setting up of the benchmark is not very efficient, because in the market where the energy saving certificates are traded, we don't see a price disclosure that way. Most of the times these are being sold out at a base price, which means that there is not adequate demand for the energy saving certificates that we have there. So the question that we come here, that we'll try to conclude here is that when we have a large scale policy, especially in a country like India, we need a very huge trained manpower who can support the monitoring and evaluation part of it, and how the price can play an important role in energy trading market, because otherwise the similar kind of thing we saw in the context of EU ETS, and we don't want to fall into the same trap here. So a course correction probably in this direction may be thought of, and I would leave it there, and I will be happy to take questions further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll have time at the end of this hour for questions and answers. But in the meantime, in your chat group, the chat function, you can ask questions there and we'll try to address them as well. So I think, let's see, we'll go on to our next talk and I'll do an introduction, and then Firuz, you can start sharing your slides, get that set up. Yeah, as I mentioned, he's the postdoctoral research at the SMART Center, and his work focuses on power sector decarbonization with a special emphasis on modeling electricity systems, developing both national and regional power sector scenarios, and assessing the socioeconomic impacts of energy transitions. And he has professional experience both in academia and the energy industry. Firuz, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Ed, and good morning, everyone from Bangkok, and good afternoon and evening to others who have joined from different parts of the world. So today, the topic of my talk is the industrial energy efficiency in Bangladesh, with assessing the journeys and what would be the future pathways. So let's start, and let us start with the developmental goal that Bangladesh has set, that by 2041, Bangladesh would like to be a developed country. And for that, one of the key drivers would be the industry sector, which in 2024 was consuming around 27% of country's total electricity, which is around 23 terawatt hours. And this consumption was happening in 6 key industrial sectors in Bangladesh, which are textiles and ready-made garments, the iron and steels, the cements, glass and ceramics, the chemicals, which also includes the fertilizers, and the agro industries. Now, these 6 industries in Bangladesh contributes around 21.85% of the total GDP. And we can see that the key primary fuel share in this industry is mostly fossil fuel based, where the local gas and LNG imports dominates with around 51% of the primary fuel. Now, if we look at the sectoral CO2 emissions in Bangladesh, we see that the power industry is the major emitter, which is followed by the industrial combustion. So this number gives us an idea that why we need to bring sustainable solutions and efficiency measures in these 2 sectors, especially industry and power. And if we look at the industrial opportunities by different studies and audits in Bangladesh, what they found is in textile and ready-made garments, which is the major export-based industry in Bangladesh, and this industry, it contributes around 13% to the GDP of Bangladesh, and the studies found that 80% of the industries in ready-made garments have their own captive power plants, which are operated by gas and furnace oil. And in terms of energy efficiency opportunities, at the end-use level, they identified motors, the boilers, the variable frequency drives, and lighting, where the range of energy efficiency possibilities is somewhere around 10 to 20%. In iron and steel, the opportunities are in exhaust gas heat recovery, insulation, and automation. The range is around 5 to 25%. In cement, we see the opportunities in vertical roller machine, the motor and drives, the fans, and airflow, where there is a range between 3 to 15%. In chemicals and fertilizers, the energy efficiency opportunities belongs in injection molding machines and combustion efficiencies that can be ranged from 5 to 30%. And in agro industries and glass and ceramics, there is untapped potential around 18 to 24% with improvement in energy efficiency. So these numbers basically represents or highlights a significant but largely unrealized potentials in Bangladeshi industrial sectors. Now, the energy efficiency improvement must be happened with the policies. So Bangladesh has set national targets through Energy Efficiency and Conversion Master Plan, which implemented in 2016. It targets that 20% reduction in energy intensity by 2030, and it should be against the value of 2013. Now, it provides a national framework for end-use efficiency to overcome the implementation gaps. And the efficiency, as Bangladesh is focusing, and in power sector, it is really gaining an importance. And if we see the Integrated Energy and Power Sector Master Plan, which came in 2023, it identifies that power sector would be a key a pillar of Bangladesh's energy transition for economic developments. And there are studies that shows that if we can improve the energy efficiencies in industries and in end-use levels, what will happen is it will reduce the pressure on LNG imports, it will reduce the system cost, and it will open more options for integrating demand-side solutions like alongside energy efficiency, there could be demand-side flexibility as well. And particularly for industry, as we have around 21%, around 23 terawatts hour of consumptions, it will directly reduce the demand both on national grids as well as in the captive power plants. So what we did in SMARTS, considering these energy efficiency potentials, we try to work on a model, which is an integrated model. We call it PIPSA Bangladesh Integrated Demand and Supply Model, where we try to develop a clean energy transition scenario for Bangladesh based on both placed targets that Bangladesh has made, as well as some higher ambition targets. Now, we include both supply side only solutions, as well as we bring the demand side solutions, where we mean energy efficiency and demand side flexibility. We incorporate all the power plants that exists in Bangladesh and their official different sorts of techno-economic data, the transmission and distribution data, the renewable potentials of Bangladesh, and then we include with end-use efficiencies, both followed by energy efficiency and conversion master plan, as well as some ambition targets, but those are followed by year increase based on these energy efficiency and conversion master plans. So let's see that what we did, and one of the purpose was for integrating the energy efficiency is we can inform or we can quantify the impact of energy efficiency in the clean energy transition, as well as we have quantified the socio-economic impact of this energy efficiency inclusion into the clean energy transition. So as I said that we developed 8 scenarios where we have placed and higher action ambitious scenarios. Placed, we have like 20% energy efficiency, as you already seen in 2030. Then we try to see that if we bring up more energy efficiency, say 33% by 2041 and by like 44% by 2050, then what are the possible impacts into the clean energy transition of Bangladesh? So let's see the capacity expansion pathway. So if you particularly look at 2 scenarios, scenario 8 and scenario 5, which we expect to be happen by mid-century, we see that if we do not consider the energy efficiency, and if we would like to meet the demand of industry and other sectors in Bangladesh with renewable energies or clean energies, we see by 2050 we need around 310 gigawatt of capacity expansion. On the other hand, if we bring the energy efficiency into action, by 2050 we considered 44%, we see that we can avoid almost half of the capacity expansion. Now, this in terms of monetary value, if we look that if we do not consider energy efficiency, the investment need is around 257 billion euros. On the other hand, when we are bringing up these energy efficiencies, the investment goes down almost by 100 billion. So we need only 144.56 billion if we consider the energy efficiency. So not only it is reducing the fleet size, but also it is helping us to reduce the financial burden on the capacity expansions. Now, as you know, Bangladesh is a very densely populated country, so land footprint is an important factor. So we see that without energy efficiency and we go with higher capacity expansion, we need around 2.5% of total land area of Bangladesh for installing all these renewable capacities. On the other hand, if we are considering the energy efficiency or kind of in this model, we consider like 8.5% of demand side flexibility as well. We see that the land requirements goes down. We need around only 1.48% of the total country's land. So it seems that the integrated demand and supply side scenarios, they lowers the land footprint and they help avoiding land use conflicts. And on top of that, as we are talking about industrial efficiency, and if we also consider the ready-made garments rooftops, we might even lower the land requirements for utilizing the solar potentials. Now, we have seen that energy efficiency helps us making the capacity expansion lower. It reduces the financial strain. It reduces the land requirement. But we have a very good impact on the economy, because although the other factors are lower, but in terms of job creation, the potential is higher. We see that there could be around 9 million of new jobs if we bring the energy efficiency with the supply side expansions. And this is because that energy efficiency has a potential to bring more jobs through retrofits and into the supply chains. And we break down the job creations into manufacturing, construction and installation and operation and maintenance sectors, so that particularly if manufacturing is not happening, then what are the other sectors where the jobs will come in Bangladesh? And then also, if we look at the power generation cost, as I said, that as we see that in industry, many industry have their own captive power plants and running on fossil fuel based, which are expensive. We see that if we bring the energy efficiency into action, let's say in 2030, where we have 20% energy efficiency targets and 30% renewable energy target, we see that using the energy efficiency, we can lower the power generation cost by 6.22 euro per megawatt hour. Similar situation we see in 2041, when we have even more efficiencies and more renewables into the system, the power generation cost further goes down. And in 2050, when you have a combination of energy efficiency and demand side flexibility, we see that the integrated scenario shows the lowest power generation cost, which ensures an affordable power and as well as clean power. So for industries, by saving money in power generation, they can invest these into other development purposes. Now, in terms of emission pathway, if we look that this red line, which is a 2019 policy frozen scenario, we see that in 2030, the emission without any intervention can go up to 100 million tons of CO2 in Bangladesh's power sector. And by 2050, without any action, this can go up to 200 million tons of CO2. On the other hand, if you look at the blue and the green line, which represents the only supply side and then combination of demand and supply side, we see that the energy efficiency paths, the integrated path has a potential that in near term, it will even reduce the carbon dioxide emission in the energy transition pathway. So the message is, if we have energy efficiencies and demand side strategies into action, ultimately we are going towards clean energy transition, but in near terms, we have lower emissions. And now, what are the opportunities? Although we said some earlier, but in terms of industrial efficiency gains, the device level, we have motors, the optimized steam and compressed air systems, the cogeneration, waste to heat recovery, modernization in the ready-made garment sectors, the steels and fertilizers. And as per studies, there are potential around 17 to 32% of saving. And there will be savings in LNG imports, which each year can save us around 460 million of US dollars. In buildings, we have the LEDs, the lightings, the inverter ACs, the fans and refrigerators, the chillers. Those have the potential to reduce the total demand. And in terms of residential sectors, the behavioral change and appliances upgrades can reduce the demand by up to 50%. And as we introduce the demand side flexibility into our model as well, we see that solutions like smart cooling and thermal storages, as well as managed EV charging, would give us an option for demand side flexibilities. And in terms of benefits, if we have these efficiencies in action, then this will lower the system cost and land footprint, and the same reliability can be made with smaller fleets and lower near-term emissions. Now, although we have the opportunities, let's see what are the barriers to the energy efficiency implementation in Bangladesh. So the first one is the shortage of trained manpower with right skills. So still the sector, the implementation, human capacity has not developed yet. There are institutional barriers, which are like inclusiveness and lack of coordination among different implementation agencies. There is lack of appropriate regulations, which is a policy and governance barrier. There are lack of infrastructure and innovation and R&Ds, which are the technical barriers in energy efficiency in Bangladesh. And there are like very few private investments, and there are preferences for production over efficiency, which is an economic and financial barrier. And the lack of awareness, lack of information is also one of the key barriers. And as you see that in the energy efficiency conversion master plan, what happened is they tried to increase the public awareness and started working on 2016 at that stage. And now at this is the time where they expect that there will be very high public awareness about energy efficiency and its implementations. Now, the key message, if I want to sum up that the energy efficiency, it would be the first step. It will reduce the waste in energy use, because through efficiency, we can save a lot of demand in industries. It can save the LNG imports. And as we look through the model-based results, we found that the energy efficiency and demand-side flexibility, it can help achieve Bangladesh more affordable, more reliable, and more sustainable power sector. And the national targets for zero carbon power sector by the mid-century can reach better if we strategically implement the energy efficiencies and demand-side flexibility with supply-side solutions. And these will help us to avoid excess capacity expansions. It will lower the total need for financial mobilizations. It helps reducing the competition for land allocation. It boosts the overall employment potentials, and it makes the power more affordable. And in near terms, we generate lower CO2s in the power sector. So yeah, that's it. And thank you for your attentions.
Great. Thank you very much. I see we have a few minutes left, and we have a question from Avinash. The PATH scheme is a good step, but accountability and transparency remain challenges. As industries move toward efficiency, how much should this transition depend on the willingness versus minimum standards? And do we also need a broader social and policy framework as seen in global models to guide this? So I guess we'll start with Shyamasree. Why don't you respond first?
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you, Avinash. So yeah, I think when we talk about the PAT scheme, if you look at the mechanism, it initially started off with a limited number of industrial units who are very large producers, but then it has kind of expanded, and which was required, which was definitely required. But the moment it expands, and again, I want to emphasize on the scale at which a country like India operates. So of course, maintaining the transparency is a very, very important issue that we have, and monitoring and evaluation becomes very, very important in this context. So if I can read your question, you are asking, as industries move towards efficiency, how much should this transition depend on their willingness versus minimum standard? Now, from my interaction with the industries, from my understanding, industries are willing, because if they reduce the energy consumption, there is a huge cost cutting. Probably this is the message that needs to be conveyed, which is very important, because it's a win-win solution even for the industries. But again, a lot of host of other things are related. What is the capital subsidy that is being given? Because at the end of the day, it's again a matter of technology. So yes, there is a, as the policy framework is moving, yes, the broader social policy frameworks would be required. But personally, I think if this message can be clearly conveyed to the industrial sector, what are the benefits that can be achieved through industrial efficiency policies, that will do a lot.
Okay.
Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, thank you. Firuz, I have a similar question, but maybe in Bangladesh, and I don't know, and there are probably a ton of questions related to this, but how this, is Bangladesh unique, or is it common to all the other countries in the Asia Pacific region? But who's going to be pushing all this for both energy efficiency, renewable energy? Is this at the public sector, at the government top? Or does the private sector have a role? Are there associations of industrial partners who are sort of on the same wavelength and they're interested in promoting that? And then how about academia and institutions? I mean, there's the Asia Institute of Technology itself, but how are they trying to get to where you want to go, or what you've expressed today in your presentation, so that of the evaluation community, the evaluators, for example, who should they work with? Is it, again, at each of those levels, or is there one in we'll use Bangladesh since this is what your subject is. You can give us your answer.
Well, thank you, Ed, for the interesting questions. Now, in terms of Bangladeshi perspective, the policies, as you know, determined by the government. However, there are institutions like we call it SHREDA, which is responsible for these implementations like energy efficiencies and different renewable targets, and they work closely with industry. So, for example, if someone wants to work on or try to bring some solutions for Bangladeshi industries in terms of government authorities, they can closely work with SHREDA, which is an institution that implements these energy efficiencies and other innovations into the power and industry sectors. And in terms of academics, there are many institutions like the universities in Bangladesh. Now they are doing research on the power sectors. Lately, you will see there are institutions like we call it IEEFA, who also publishes a lot of reports on Bangladesh's industry sector energy efficiencies and power sectors and the transition towards the clean energies. So in terms of academics, you will see that recently many new reports, new journal articles, and new research reports, which are for non-technical or non-academic persons, are coming out. So there are institutions in Bangladesh who are dedicatedly working on energy sectors, on industry sectors, and towards the energy transitions. And regarding who will basically promote these energy efficiencies, you see Bangladesh's industry, the name of the 6 industries that I have mentioned, mostly operated by private sectors. So the initiatives should be from the government sectors. There should be some encouraging policies so the private sector gets their benefits, that by implementing this energy efficiency, they improve their technological strength as well as they support the energy transition process in Bangladesh. So there should be the initiative from government perspective, but the implementation has to be happened by the private organizations. I mean the industries.
Okay. Good. I think just follow up, and this will be the last question for you anyway. Are there meetings / webinars / conferences, workshops dealing with the industrial sector in Bangladesh where these different parties come together? So then again, from an evaluator perspective, they said, I really should go to this meeting because they're going to talk about the different industrial sectors and what role I can play. I, wearing my evaluation hat, can play in Bangladesh and learning more and doing more work there.
Yeah, of course. Different sorts of academic conferences. One I can refer is a conference going to be happening in December, which is known as STI, one in universities, which is called Green University in Bangladesh. They are arranging a talk where we have a specific tracks on these industries, so that is an option. And very often you will see that different webinars and meetings in industrial levels are happening. And also government is now pushing towards clean energies and these the implementation of energy efficiency. So regular online webinars and the conferences are happening in Bangladesh. And I think that anyone who wants to explore more, they can just search for a few of the webinars specific to Bangladesh. They will get it online, all the documents. And there are few portals for energy sector now who regularly updates or share reports and blogs related to what is happening new into the energy sector. So now I think over the last few years these has been improved a lot in Bangladesh, although we had a lack of awareness and lack of implementation and lack of information. But nowadays many of the portals, they hold the open access information, so anyone would like to get information on the industry and power sectors, they can easily get it either through the official channels, or there are many institutions in Bangladesh who publishes yearly reports and detailed information about industry and power sector, so they can easily get those information from there.
Great, thank you. And then the last question, because I know we're running a little late, but Shyamasree, the same question I just posed with Firuz in India, if evaluators want to work with or learn more about evaluation in India, is it the public sector, private sector, academia? Are there meetings that they should focus on where they could go to learn more and perhaps work with others in India in the industrial sector?
Okay, so the route for Indian industrial sector would be best through the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So that is the nodal agency that we have in India, which is under the Ministry of Power. This is called Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and they are the one who actually certifies the the energy auditors and evaluators in the country. So that's sort of a key point which can be explored.
Okay, good. Well, I want to thank both presenters today. I learned a lot about the industrial areas in both Bangladesh and India and where things are going and heading. And very interesting. I want to thank the participants the attendees who came out. We will have a recording of this seminar or workshop or webinar, and we'll make that available later. So thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. We have more planned, so I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just put a link in the chat. You can use that to give your feedback and improvement for our upcoming webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you.
And thank you for helping organize this.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.